Hello, film friends, friends of film, and everyone in between. Welcome to the Film Folklore Podcast. I am Jed Props, and I am joined today by Chris AD.
Hello.
Zoe Props.
Hey.
And, of course, Justin Sound.
Hi.
Joe is not with us today. He is still traveling the world. We did get a postcard from the Korean DMZ line where Joe was meeting up with General Mayhem. So moving us along, well, as you probably can guess from the title, we are back in the Rust world. And it's quite the quagmire of a situation, as we know. But we're here. And before we get into it, I wanted to address one point we forgot to talk about in the first part episode, and that is rubbers and replicas. That's one thing we missed in the first one. So even though this is really my and Zoe's department, instead I'm going to turn this into a quiz rematch between Chris and Justin, a la the Christmas episode. And I'm gonna do a little tally here, and then
Chris is pumping his fists
and
right now.
Zoe specifically,
Good thing I'm hungover.
you can correct Chris every time he's wrong.
Copy that.
All right, so we got 3 quick little rounds. So round 1 is basically who can be the first person to explain what are rubbers and replicas.
Well, rubber gun is made out of rubber.
Yep.
And a replica is a replica that does not operate whatsoever.
Yeah, pretty much. It's basically a fancy paperweight. It's it's metal, has the look and everything of a gun, but can't do a gun's functions.
And probably not to be confused with like an airsoft or something like that, right?
Correct. Blowbacks and things would be a different conversation.
I'll let you have that one.
Yeah.
You don't want to explain as well?
No.
The exact same.
I know that I'm on a show where I'm supposed to talk, but I'd prefer not to talk today.
And please speak up a lot because I'm going to have to read quite a lot today. So round 2.
Reading sucks.
Reading's for suckers. Yeah. In what situations would you use a rubber or a replica?
Sexually or?
And there's
I had to.
multiple
I'm
answers
sorry.
here. So basically
It's
just whoever names the most. And then we can fill in the ones you didn't say.
So like you would use rubbers for rehearsals and stuff like that. You should always use rubbers for rehearsals. And then when you're actually going to a scene, as long as the gun doesn't fire, if you're just brandishing it, it's always a good idea to use the replica. Certainly.
Yep.
Those are basically the main times. And I mean, now the way that everything is going, you know, it's been a while since we've all been on a film set, but you know, I keep,
You act like something happened.
I keep hearing that it's all going to go VFX and there's not going to be any more muzzle flashes because
I'm hearing that rumor too.
because
There's-
of what happened on the set of Rust.
There's a little bit of morbid irony, I guess, going on because the VFX is constantly improving and looking better and better, but ironically, because of it's expensive, it's these low budget shows that still need the muzzle flashes and things that would be using these. But there are more scenarios. If Justin, you want to try and get some points here, or Chris, y'all are tied right now.
I would think the maybe a use for the replicas would be if it's super antique and it's not actual, you know, I mean, they don't have a safe way to operate a real one. I don't know.
Deep background.
No, okay. Give it to Chris. It's fine.
Did you say background?
Deep background.
Yeah.
Rubbers.
Yeah, they have rubbers, certainly. The BG, we don't really like to give the background weapons.
Yep, you're missing a big one too.
Speak for yourself.
There's oftentimes in fight sequences, you would want a soft rubber.
Yeah.
For
dropping.
Oh, well, yeah,
Well,
or
stunt
hitting
dudes,
over the head
you know,
or whatever.
Hitting over the head, sure, yeah.
stunt people be particular.
Also,
you know?
little
I don't
notice.
wanna hurt- I don't want to hurt their little bodies.
I do want to put a disclaimer out for any stunt people that could be listening. As much as we would like to give you a rubber everything you ask for, it's very expensive. So most of us don't have like if basically if they're in a cop, if they're in a standard police uniform, they want that entire belt to be rubber, and it's just, I mean, ballparking that's like 10 grand for one belt.
Are you serious?
If I was to make each one of those little things into rubber pieces, yeah. I mean, which, hey, great segue, because round 3, how much do you think a mold and a rubber casting for a Colt 45 set would cost?
Ding. $7,000.
No.
I mean, I would have said 49 cents before before this little bit of information that you just said before. I don't know, man. I mean, I honestly thought that was super cheap.
Nowadays, you'd be looking at something in the neighborhood of $1,600, $800 for the mold, $800 for the rubber. So
That's crazy.
That's bananas.
yes,
A month's rent.
yeah.
So you said $10,000 for the whole belt, essentially, for like a
Right.
a
So
belt
like if I
full
had to
of
do,
weaponry.
if I had to do the gun, the holster, the handcuffs, the handcuff pouch, the asp, flashlight, every single thing on there, the taser. So there's a lot of business on a cop belt.
Right.
But yeah, stunt guys are always like, can we get this radio in a rubber? And you're like, I mean, yeah, I'd love to get you. I mean, shit, I'd love to have everything in a rubber, but I mean, here we are. But yeah, let's see. Tallying up the score, it looks like the final score is 2-2.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm happy with it. I feel like we're collaborating.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
feel good about
We'll
it.
have to have a future.
Now we're on a team against you two.
Great minds, baby.
Yeah.
I'm an idiot. Don't ask me anything.
So that third round in question was to segue us into today's Rust topic, because in the world of rubbers and replicas, we did not talk about why in that rehearsal was there not a rubber or a replica. Like, why did a real gun even go in for a rehearsal? That's one thing that we didn't really discuss much. And so I wanted to point out what the cost would have been to have a Colt 45 rubber made, in case you couldn't find it already in existence, because that's another thing. We'll rent stuff all the time. And if it's common enough, a lot of the prop houses would probably already have the rubbers made, like a Glock, something very standard. But something old, like a Colt 45, sure, okay. But even if you got it made, $1,600, like, is that really breaking the bank even on a low budget? So
Does that come painted for $1,600?
yeah, I mean, I'm ballparking. I mean,
Yeah.
each mold and rubber item is going to have like a little bit of a flex to its. So 1,600 is me ballparking.
Gotcha.
And sometimes, like, if you have a good paint department, you can even maybe save a few bucks by getting it in, having your paint department do it. There's a scenic legend, Steve Curligan, shout out. I'd love to get him on at some point, but someone like him, I would have all the confidence in the world of doing any paint job you asked him on any type of surface. But the prop houses also have very good painters. So, yes.
And then wait, so I need a refresh. This happened. The incident happened during a rehearsal, right?
Yes, and I'm glad you said that, because I was going to give a little reminder here. So this happened at a time that the industry was stretched thin. So the pool of labor wasn't really, as great as maybe it would be at other times. And this being a low budget, around about $4 million, what we call a tier one. And at the time, I should say, I think it finished as a $7 million movie when they had to make all the adjustments and move to a different state. But it was after lunch in a church, and it was a rehearsal. It involved Alec Baldwin doing a cross draw, which, if anyone's watching court TV, the prosecution trying to talk about the elaborate nature of a cross draw is pretty hilarious, considering it's a court. And it's lame. But anyway, so what I didn't know, and I think I mentioned it further down, but the COVID protocols were still pretty hardcore in place. And so allegedly, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, the armorer, was not allowed to go in for whatever reason. I don't know who would have deemed the armor as not okay to go in a interior place in a COVID gun situation. But
Oh, sure. Because I bet they're just an additional and didn't get that whatever. What was it, like A, B,
right,
gold star
exactly.
status,
Are you
silver
zone A?
status?
Are you
Yes,
zone
yes, yes.
B?
Yeah.
Things that we don't want to waste people's time with. So the long short is that this is how the first AD, David Halls, which now it is confirmed, he was the one who did deliver the gun into the set to
Wow.
Alec Baldwin. So any other refresher questions?
I mean, no, other than just sort of like, you bring up the cost of like a rubber or a replica, and it's just like, if you don't have the money, then fine. Have it be a squirt gun. Have it be a cap gun. Have it be a towel. Have it be a kitten. Anything other than an actual loaded gun.
So I'm imagining...
rehearsal.
Well, I'm imagining because of this cross draw, Alec was probably requesting to be working with. But this is, again, where a replica would come into place because it would have the similar weight, and it's also clearly shaped the same as the actual gun. So you would be able to go through the mechanics and everything.
But also, again, if Alec wanted to work with the real gun or a replica gun, why wasn't it with the armorer? Why wasn't it?
Well, that's, I mean...
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Just some guys like, here you go.
Yeah. And it's also like, as an AD, I mean, like if an armorer is like, here you go, hand this to the actor. Like,
no thanks.
That's all I'm saying is like, nah.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that.
No.
Exactly. I mean, that should be... I mean, that's kind of a...
Not that any armorer that I've ever worked with would allow that to happen. Like, they are the ones...
And that... We're going to get into that, but that goes into the inexperience of Ms. Hannah here. She probably didn't even know how to assert herself. Now, I did learn through watching some of the early trial stuff. She apparently did email. So she had 8 armory days, and otherwise she was a prop assistant. She might have been assistant prop master. That part's not clear because lawyers don't understand that stuff. So it's possible that she was the assistant prop master. She should have been, because you have to staff, top down, but that's another conversation. But basically she was saying that she couldn't do her job well when she had to keep doing the other job, which is true. Like, if you're an armorer, you should not be doing anything but armory. Now, we do what we call re-rates all the time, but if let's say if I get re-rated to an armor, then we're also hiring someone else to take my normal spot while I'm armor. So that's what should have happened, but it didn't. So instead, this is how you get a lot of low budget and producers trying to save a few pennies kind of situation. But it's one of the many things that led to this tragedy. So all of that said, today I want to get into the legal side, and we're going to focus on Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, the HGR, because I don't want to keep saying her name all the time. But as she's in court currently at the time of this recording, there's 2 charges against her: involuntary manslaughter and tampering with evidence. Alec Baldwin has also been recharged with 1 count of involuntary manslaughter. We'll get into Alec and his specific situation and when his trial starts going and everything in a later episode. So like we said in part 1, and you can also see some images that we posted from the initial investigation, the undeniable issue with her is the absolutely haphazard disorganization and mixture of live ammo, blanks, and spent shells. We call them brass a lot, but that was what was extremely evident. Hannah, as I said, she was also doing 2 jobs instead of 1 job. And that's not good, especially when it's a safety position. And we didn't go deep into this on the first episode, but again, this being low budget, and because these producers are trying to save money, like I was saying, that's why they also got this inexperienced armor who had only done this 1 show. And the deeper I dive into this, the more it feels like that Leonard Skinner movie that is the whole reason the camera person named Sarah Jones got killed. But it's feeling much more like that, where I think there's a lot of producer culpability that's not being really focused on here.
Thinking here.
Yeah. I mean, undeniably, undeniably, Hannah was negligent. I think that's the photos show that. Between her and the prop master, it was, I mean, their truck looks like a disaster. And we'll post all this stuff. Everybody will be able to see these pictures. But anyway.
Trickle down negligence.
Trickle down.
If you will.
It's my favorite kind.
Where did the tampering with evidence charge come from?
We'll get into it a little bit, but there's a little bit of confusion. Now this whole thing has a lot of finger pointing now. Now that the trial's going, oh my God, these people have all turned on each other. So what is clear is that there was some evidence tampering. And there's a lot of speculation on things that hasn't really come to light yet, that may or may not come to light in the trial. It may be which lawyer does a better job of explaining their theory, that kind of stuff. But anyway, I put a note in here to give an idea that why you shouldn't have someone like an armor doing other roles. And my example is, hey, Justin, we'd like you to be the mixer and the boom op on this stage show.
Well, there is a world where
Oh, I've seen it.
that's a thing.
Yeah, you almost look like a
sure.
fly fisherman when you're doing it.
Right.
Where you have the mixer
Carrying-
pack
you're
on you.
carrying a 20
Yeah.
to 30 pound bag. And yeah.
But on stage, that's not very
That's
ideal.
not a thing for, no, not on stage.
Yeah.
Typically not with scripted
Right.
film or TV.
And, she's 25 years old now. And that was, what,
Oh,
3 years ago?
That really sucks.
So another thing that's come to light that I'd kind of heard a little bit about, but I didn't know until now looking at this trial stuff. So she and the prop master had sourced the ammo from a man named Seth Kinney of a company called PDQ Props. I had never heard of PDQ Props, but Seth Kinney, I do know, was fired from the Hand Prop Room, which is one of our main prop houses out in Los Angeles. He worked in their armory, and I can't remember the exact details of it, but it was something along the lines of either theft or negligence or something like that. Now, that's my speculation of my own memory for the record, but when I saw his name, it definitely raised an eyebrow.
That's an interesting twist.
Right. So, and the reason I bring him up, it also came to light that the prop master, whose name is Sarah Zachary, works for Seth, or at least she did at the time. So she worked for Seth Kinney and PDQ Props. So basically she got the job and then she was renting everything from him or buying things from him. Where he's procuring his ammo, I have no idea, because I only know of Target Props, Hand Prop Room, and ISS, which is Independent Studio Services. Those are the three entities that we typically buy our ammo from. And this is an interesting detail that also came to light. Apparently, immediately after the incident, Sarah Zachary phoned Seth Kinney, and whatever happened in that conversation resulted in her removing rounds from guns and throwing them away. And they were never able to find the rounds that she threw away. So, if nothing else, it's just bad optics, but, it's not a good look. So call back to our first episode. What is safe to say is that, I don't know, dozens of protocols were broken to create the tragedy. And Chris, let's say you, for example, you're the first AD. I arrive on set with a weapon ready to hand to the actor, and I try to give it directly to the actor. What steps are being skipped?
I mean, basically, like the steps are, you really stop, and it's just like anybody that wants to see it, but specifically the operators, because oftentimes the gun is being pointed at the camera. So it's being pointed directly at the operators, and they get to see exactly what the ammunition is, whether it's quarter loads or half loads or whatever. That is just talking about, like, quarter load, half load, full load is talking about the amount of gunpowder that is in the blank of this round. So everybody gets a chance to see that. And then once, that has happened, depending on the load or whatever, we're going to hand out eye protection, ear protection. Oftentimes camera operators they'll get like very specific eyepieces. So that's sort of like protecting them, a piece of plastic, but they can see through their eyepiece of the camera. Sometimes
we drill a hole in a face shield.
Yeah, exactly. And they're often covered with like Duvetine as well. So there's just a lot. Everything, it seems like, was skipped. The whole safety procedure.
Yep. I mean, I've been yelled at on a show when I'm coming on set with guns too clear, and I'm trying to find the first AD, and I'm being yelled at for having uncleared weapons on set. I'm like, but I'm on my way to
do it. Yeah.
If you're going to come that quickly at me, then there's a little of a catch-22 here.
Yeah.
And my hands were full. I couldn't radio, it was that kind of situation. But anyway, it just goes back to that whole thing again of like, where were the rubbers and the replicas? I mean, that's the thing that's so jarring to me. So we're going to get into maybe how we view a lot of this stuff versus how the state of New Mexico is viewing a lot of this stuff. And to boil it down, it would be like the state judges that this is essentially Hannah was in charge of the guns and ammo, Alec Baldwin fired the gun, and David Halls made a plea deal. So therefore, that's why Hannah and Alec are the ones on trial and nobody else.
And Hannah was the young lady who was the armorer, but that's not the prop master.
No.
Her boss is Sarah.
Sarah was the prop master.
Which who should really be.
Yeah, why is she not getting charged for tampering with evidence?
And that's a great question. So, and I'm sure there's going to be more about that in trial because now everybody's turned on each other. So,
because I'm seeing
everybody pointing fingers.
Yeah, a young 22-year-old girl who's taking orders from her boss, who's inexperienced, and I don't know.
I did not see how old Sarah was, but I get the impression that she's very young as well.
Yeah,
and. So yeah, David Halls, a little update on him. He made the plea deal, as we said. It has now been confirmed that he was the one who did indeed deliver the gun to Baldwin and declare it a cold weapon. He therefore was charged after his plea deal and found guilty of negligent use of a deadly weapon. And he was sentenced to 6 months of unsupervised probation.
What the hell is that? What the hell is So 6 months of nothing.
That is what a plea deal gets you. Is his very slap on the wrist.
You'll be on probation, but we'll never check in on you.
And he's going to be
Unsupervised.
he's going to be a state's witness as well.
Oh man.
So
sorry, never heard that before.
yes, I didn't put this in the notes or anything, but there's someone who calls themselves an armorer who used to work here, and sorry listeners, I'll tell everybody except y'all off mic. But I'll say that they stole things on more than one occasion, and they apparently are coming in as an expert witness.
Ooh.
I'm not going to say what side. I'm not going to go because it'll be easier to figure it out if I tell you that. So anyway, when I heard that, I was like, wow. I mean, I feel like nobody's vetting anyone.
They're bringing out all the big guns, no pun intended.
Hey, yo. So like I said, everybody's turned on each other. So are y'all ready for a not at all shocking, but very confusing finger pointing?
Yeah, come on.
So it's not Alec's fault because he is not a gun guy and he trusted the safety system. It's not Hannah's fault because it's Sarah, the prop master, who ordered the ammo from the facilitator, Seth, and then the first AD, David Halls, is the one who delivered the gun, not Hannah. It's a lot of that. And so that's what's going to make the trial part interesting is how it plays out when it comes to how the jury, I guess, discerns what they feel is at the core. If y'all scroll down, there's the first pictures you're going to see is Hannah Gutierrez-Reed at the time of her arrest, the day of the incident. She's in the back of a squad car. And you'll notice she has two-tone hair, which a mutual friend of all of hers said, "Go Tigers." And I sent a lot of laughing emojis. So what I want to talk about is getting into the ammo. And I posted stuff for everybody here to see, and it's stuff that was posted in our first episode, but it's pictures where you can see how just haphazard everything is. I mean, there are rounds all over the place. They're loose on the cart. They're loose on the floor of the truck. They're loosely in a bag. It's bad. It's very bad looking. And by far, this is the worst disorganization I've ever witnessed.
This Mary Kay bag.
And I was literally just saying that. I was like, and it's a Mary Kay bag. That might be the biggest faux pas of them all. Obviously, the live rounds is the main issue. And I think, Chris, I think it was you who had said it in the first episode, but basically, there is no excuse for why live ammo should ever be on a film set. I mean, 101 of the safest way to not get shot on a film set is just to not have live ammo there. That's problem solved. Yeah. So that's going to be, again, a point of speculation on how it got there. And that's what has not come to light.
But I do want to go over ammunition a minute for the listener. And again, I'll post some pictures that kind of help show what we're going to explain. I didn't want to go into crazy detail, but basically you have two types of rounds, blanks and dummies. Dummies sometimes are called inerts. Blanks are essentially a live round that is missing the projectile, and that can be seen by a crimped tip. Dummies look like real bullets, but the only thing inside of them are BBs typically, so when you shake them, you can hear the rattle. When we order ammo from our typical shops aforementioned, they come extremely well marked, extremely well packaged, and are separated in very specific containers and boxes and things. Blanks generally come in what we call full loads, half loads, and quarter loads. That is in reference to the amount of gunpowder in the round. Fulls are the loudest, and they will give you the brightest, best muzzle flash. That's the whole point of using them in the first place, is because they want to simulate that like smoke and muzzle flash coming off of the weapon. And then half loads, less gunpowder, still a muzzle flash. Quarter loads, no muzzle flash, the lowest of the sounds, but there is still a smoking gun. That's the basic breakdown in a nutshell. And there's a lot of situations that determine when and how we use different things. I believe, if I remember correctly, on Hannah's first show, she had a full load gun go off by a horse, I think we had said. And then we had learned that apparently that's animal cruelty if a full load is fired off by a horse. I didn't know that because I haven't done a lot of Westerns.
Fair enough.
But hey, it makes sense. So anyway, if you imagine what I just said, and then add into that live rounds, and now they're all loose on a cart, and you're not exactly a seasoned veteran, and you're doing two jobs. I mean, this is bad. It's bad. It's what gets things to an extremely dangerous level, and then adding into it the two jobs and Hannah's inexperience, and probably I'm sure they were behind on the day probably or something like that. So they're rushing, and that kind of thing is happening as well. You add those factors in, you're at DEFCON 1. I mean, it is not good. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's kind of one of those things where you go, I'm surprised there weren't more incidents going on, But the camera department, if y'all recall, did quit because they had complained multiple times about safety issues. And that was the day before of the incident. So a whole new camera team had come in the day of the incident.
Lucky them.
Yeah, right.
That was your first day.
Yeah.
What was the video that came out? Was it a camera guy like tripping over something?
I'm trying to remember.
There was some footage that was released recently. I thought there was like a...
Now, there is a lot of Baldwin footage that's from the dailies.
Right. That looked like, for the most part, he was being pretty safe. Right. Yeah.
I mean, he was telling them to move out of the way, that he needed a clear line and stuff like that. I mean, he knows those basics, Right. But I mean, even a very experienced actor, like let's say Keanu Reeves, even someone like him, we're taught basically, as soon as someone says cut, you get that weapon out of their hand. As soon as you can empty it and declare the weapon clear and everything, it doesn't matter how seasoned the person is. We are basically taught to just assume everyone is dumb with a gun and get it out of their hand as fast as possible. And again, how could you even do that if you're not in the room? I mean, there's that too. So, and I hate to keep sound like I'm defending Hannah, because I mean, I am to a certain extent, but that's just because I think the culpability stretches very far. But later when y'all look at the pictures and everything and you see the rounds everywhere, the last thing I wanted to tell y'all, this is something I didn't know until I started watching the trial stuff. They were also mixed in with the actors' belts, the bandoliers, like basically on their person. So whether it's Alec Baldwin or any other actor, the rounds that are in, say, like their belt or a bandolier that goes across the body or whatever, those should at most be dummies. but you can even put rubber bullets in those because it's just decoration, basically.
Yeah.
So the fact that they were mixed in that is wow. I mean, I've never even heard of something like that. And I do have a picture where they're showing it as evidence, but what's difficult to see in the photo is you can definitely tell that there are it's possibly blanks, it's possibly live ammo. That's the part that's hard to tell because the primers don't give you enough information, at least from the photo I have here. But what is apparent is that something beyond a dummy is in these belts. I mean, that's the part that's very concerning.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's that. Now, the only scenario where blanks would be permitted on an actor's person, costume, and or props would be if the scene calls for the actor to load and fire a weapon in a single take, meaning the camera rolls for the entire motion. And that is a very specific and very rare scenario. And again, if we were doing it, I mean, we would be off to the side doing lots of practice. The armor would be with the actor, working with them, doing a lot of rehearsals. Allegedly, Hannah did request training time with Alec, and she was told no. I can't remember if that was in an email or if it was just something they're claiming. But I mean, it sounds like she knew some cursory things because of her dad, who, again, is a famous gunslinger and armorer. But anyway.
But he's embarrassed.
I mean, you know.
Daughter, everything you knew, right, Dad?
Well, he's also, I mean, now, I mean, I think he was like in his 50s when she was born. Like he was already older. So, I mean, he's got to be mid to late 70s at this point.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So there's that. But so wanting to get back into this whole culpability thing. And before we kind of open up with discussion, I wanted to make a few closing points real quick. I had mentioned that she was not permitted to go into the church, allegedly, and allegedly COVID protocols. And I still haven't seen it confirmed anywhere, the rumors about she or possibly other crew members going off and firing the prop guns with live ammo, because there was a rumor that it was the night before. There was a rumor that it was during lunch that very day, but I haven't seen anything that's actually clarifying that. So it's still a rumor right now. And then you got two scenarios where this live ammo most likely came from. And in either way, again, it comes down to negligence. So either this guy, Seth, somehow delivered or left live ammo to be picked up. I don't know how it was transported or whatever, and Reed wasn't experienced enough to check or know, or Sarah, the prop master, was not looking at it herself, because usually the prop master is ordering for the armor. The armor says what they need. The prop master makes the order. So it's either that or Hannah brought it on set and then it got mixed into the mess. So I can't, or I'm sorry, sabotage, which was Alec's original thought, is that someone was trying to sabotage.
It's what I thought when I first heard about this. Just because if you follow any of our safety protocols, it's almost impossible to have this happen. And the fact that it did, I thought that maybe someone might have put a live round in, but but there's live rounds everywhere. It's bananas. It's really weird.
It's it is crazy to think about. I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, so I mean, especially with everything I've been reading and watching now, like I'm sold that it's one of those first two scenarios. The sabotage thing, I mean, we'll get into Titanic eventually, but one of the things from Titanic is that a disgruntled crew member put PCP in, I believe it was either the snack or the lunch, but it's in a soup essentially.
Sorry, that's not funny. It's actually horrible.
Would you like some PCP soup?
I mean, James Cameron and like 40 crew members went to the hospital.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So, I mean, yeah, a disgruntled crew member could do something.
Yeah.
It's not out of the realm of possibility. It's very rare to hear.
God, he bought PCP and sprinkled it in. That's
I just,
that's wild as hell.
I don't want to
What a
get,
shit drug.
I don't want to get too off subject,
probably.
but
Yeah, sorry.
I mean, even in the 90s,
That's his problem. That's Chris's problem.
even in the
There's
90s,
something better in there.
Yeah, dude.
Put cocaine. at least.
PCP? Jesus Christ.
you never
man.
hear about
Nine-
someone
God.
doing PCP though. It's like, who's doing
Sure.
PCP?
But it's also like you never hear a good story about PCP.
No.
one ever took
That's such a,
PCP
like-
and they're like, and then
It's
I commune
always
with
sudden-
God and I'm at peace now. It just, that doesn't happen.
Zoe, you wouldn't remember these because you're not 65, but there used to be after school specials that were these TV movies, and they were all like drug awareness and cheesiness. And there was one that I remember that we had to watch at school, but it was called Angel Dusted, and it was about a high school track star that got hooked on PCP and his life fell apart.
Oh, hell yeah. I used to watch those videos all the time.
Oh, they're great.
I went to a jail school, though.
Don't know what that means, but all right.
Of course, he did set several state records for the 100-meter dash because he was fucked up on PCP.
His leg was broken for the last 400 yards. And he
He just
kept
ran 100 meters in 5 seconds. He was going like 50 miles an hour. That's the fastest guy on ever.
and then his heart exploded.
Yeah,
Anyway, all right, getting us back on track. So I wanted to open that up for a little bit of discussion. Now, hearing everything that you've heard today, anything you remember from part one, I mean, where are you leaning as far as two questions? One, the scenario that you think is the most plausible, and then the second one is if you were a prosecutor, where would you be focusing the culpability?
I don't know. This one's tricky. I kind of,
It's a quagmire.
I feel bad
yeah.
for everybody too. Like there's a lot of stupid shit that happened there, but I don't know. It's messy and
Yeah.
weird, and everyone is so young.
Yeah.
Also, the film industry is weird, and I don't know. As I feel like if I didn't work in film, I would probably have an answer. This person's wrong.
Yeah.
Fuck Alec Baldwin or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
But working in the industry, I don't know. I kind of just feel bad
yeah.
for everybody.
It's a tragedy. I mean,
And it sounds
it's-
like there are just multiple people who let things be messy.
Yeah.
You know, it sounds like the whole production was kind of shitty. Maybe somebody kind of gave up or was just encouraged to do shit sloppy, and then it.
Yeah. Apathy seemed to just be everywhere.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't like it. I don't know how to feel. I'm scared.
It's oppressive, and I don't like it.
But it makes me like hearing about this, like it makes my palms sweaty because it's like, oh yeah,
That's
how
why
did this
I
happen?
what the
actually do have
hell?
clammy hands right now.
Yeah.
It could be the 6th coffee I'm on, but either way.
I've had a lot of coffee too. But yeah, I mean, like at this point, it's like I feel like the people that are most responsible. I mean, like it's a failure from the top down. So I mean, like, yeah, I can't put any specific blame. Like, definitely it's this person's fault. But really, right now, I'm leaning towards like the first AD and the prop master. I have a feeling that, like, I mean, if I'm the first AD and somebody hands me a gun and just says, give it to the actor, I mean, first of all, this is so just out of the realm of protocol that I would never do that. But, like, if I'm the last guy standing, then, like, I would check that weapon. I would do that. And so, I think it's a failure on his part, but then also, I mean, like, the prop master having this person who is so, I didn't know, I forgot, I guess, that she was that young, but I mean, like, so unprepared and just not knowing what the steps are.
Yeah, I mean, she would have been 21, 22 at the time.
She's a baby. Like seeing that picture, I'm like, holy fuck! Look at this kid, man.
yeah,
look at this
exactly.
fucking
He
shit.
thought
And, like,
yellow
this
and
kid's
purple was a
on-
good idea together. I mean, that's what's...
Yeah, it's bananas. Go Tigers! But like like you said,
Lakers?
like the prop master would have ordered all of that stuff.
Yes.
And like for there to be live ammunition, it literally sounds to me just sort of like, hey, I know nothing about the movie biz, but I got a job where I'm like in the top of this department. And
Also,
like,
to even just let your truck look like that, what the fuck are you doing?
well, it sounds to me, it feels like they had live ammo there because we're making a Western and there's lots of guns and bullets in Westerns and we don't know any better. So this is what every movie does, right? We just have live
get
bullets.
everything.
We just have actual bullets. And like, it seems like they didn't know that like, no, you never have that. That never makes it to set.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just so, it's preposterous, really.
I mean, there's even, and kind of going back to the whole replica thing, a replica revolver you can usually still load, and again, you would be putting dummies in. You know, when you're clearing the weapon, you're shaking it. You're shaking each round in the AD's ear so that they can hear the rattle, and then you're loading them into the replica, which can't fire even if you put real things in it. But the reason you would do something like that is if the gun is close to camera, so you need the gun in the foreground. But if the gun doesn't need to fire, because it's a revolver, you can still see the drum and you can see the rounds, and so that's why you would do something like that. But I'm kind of with you where it's like, I think they were kind of headless chicken running around. That's what their truck, that's the story the truck tells. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to soapbox this. I'm just going to say there is no show on planet Earth, a film, that should have a 2-person prop department, especially when guns are in play. So that's a message to producers everywhere. But it's crazy to think that because I'm using that revolver as an example, you have to keep that thing loaded because you physically see those rounds. So if they're grabbing at something without thinking and live ammo is present, again, the dummy and the live ammo visually looks the same if you aren't handling it.
Yeah.
And that's where I would definitely have concern that something like that could have happened. But I mean, that's the part that we don't know. But either way, it goes back to Chris's original point from the first recording. There should never be live ammo anywhere near.
Never, ever.
Yeah.
And like the scenario that we were talking about, like it was a rehearsal. Okay. And like he's doing a cross draw. So maybe, I bet you that you're totally right that Alec Baldwin was like, hey, I would like the real weapon because I want to feel the weight of it. I want to practice this draw. Okay, cool. Cold weapon on set, guys, for this rehearsal. Cold weapon on set. Mm-hmm. And what that means is we'll take a weapon and there will be no ammunition in it at all, not whatsoever. And that's what a cold weapon is. And that's what should have happened. You shouldn't have a dummy, period, for a rehearsal, ever.
Yeah, sounds like we all got a case of the Sposdas.
Simpsons reference.
I caught that once in Thailand. Took a lot of penicillin to get in.
Somebody's got a case of the Sposdas. That's a great line. And also, we should get our Simpsons swear jar. Mm-hmm. But your Simpsons line distracted me, oddly enough.
Nothing good possibly.
You were making a really good point, and anyway.
I mean, it's not, but it just like it's just the total failure of the breakdown of just all of it. The whole system is just whacked.
Yeah, dude, trickle down fuckery.
Yeah.
Really, I remember
you
now.
know.
It's the assuming, because this has happened to me before, assuming it's a low budget movie and assuming that you just don't have the money for whatever reason to go get the rubbers and the replicas. This is why you still go through the weapon clearing if the actor wants to rehearse with a real or a replica because of this complex cross draw from a sitting position that's I just don't feel as complicated because you're not actually supposed to be shooting at a target because, again, it's not supposed to be live ammo. So who cares about how complicated a cross draw is from a sitting position? Like, you're not trying to hit a target. You're just trying to pretend to hit a target.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I hate lawyers, but it's, can you imagine a world without lawyers? So it's still that thing of like, okay, so the only option for the actor to rehearse with is the reel. So again, this is why you would go through the clearance protocols and everything. And this is why you would declare cold weapon. And this is where, again, you get back to the first AD declaring a cold weapon without checking it. I mean, that's pretty massive. I've never heard of any AD actually that has just flippantly declared a cold weapon without looking at it.
No.
Yeah, that's your whole thing.
It's the whole
To
thing.
not be flippant. Just to clarify.
Yeah.
He said it. I trust him.
Yeah. It's wild. And then so those
Works
of
for
you
me.
at home who are viewing, I mean, so it's a whole deal where it's you call cold weapon on set, the first AD will, and then the entire AD department shouts it out wherever they are, on set in their deep lockup. If they're at craft services, I mean, they shout it out. So every single person knows that if they walk up, they're like, oh, there's a gun. Well, it's a cold weapon. Guns kind of make people nervous. Apparently not on this fucking show.
Yeah.
But,
No, apparently not.
anyway, but
Well, and you also announce what the weapons are.
yeah.
I mean, oftentimes it'll be we have one shotgun, we have two handguns. Sometimes the AD will go into detail. We have two Glock 17s and a tactical shotgun. All three have been cleared. 3 cold weapons on set. It might be something. But even if they don't go into great detail, they're still going to say 3 cold weapons on set.
Oh yeah. Sure.
So yeah, I mean, it is certainly a tragedy, kind of what Zoe was getting into earlier. I mean, no matter which way you look at it, it's just unfortunate at the end of the day. And somebody dies a needless, senseless, very extremely avoidable death in the process. And I mean, closing out with my end is prosecutors always want to find culpability in any death. And so, I mean, that's the whole thing of involuntary manslaughter. That charge exists because you could have, I mean, it could be you in a car, someone runs out in front of your car, you hit them, they die, you can be charged with involuntary manslaughter, even though the person that's dead ran out in front of your car, because that exists because prosecutors want to find that culpable party. And that's what is happening here. They're going back to the beginning, they're being extremely literal. Hannah was the facilitator of the guns on set, and Alec Baldwin was the one who fired, and there we are. But that's my 2 cents. Anyone else want to close out? Justin, anything to add?
I'm with Chris. I'm looking at the prop master as well.
Yeah.
I think
Giving a stink eye?
I don't know. Maybe that's weird. I don't know what the whole timeline is of these sorts of things and what the timeline is supposed to be. But maybe they're Russian things, maybe they haven't looked at, or they need to be looking at her and this Seth Kinney guy, the ammo provider, supplier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he might have been,
Especially
I
if
mean,
he's
to be
fucked
clear,
up like that before.
to be clear, I
Yeah.
mean, he could have been on the up and up. I don't know that. That's just me talking from an incident from I want to say over a decade ago. I mean, he could have easily learned from the mistake. He's running a perfectly fine business. It has nothing to do with it. Hannah's the one that brought in the live ammo. That's what we don't know. I just know
Sure, but why was there a phone call to him
that
right after?
that is a suspect, thing.
Yeah.
But also, why does he even have live ammo? Why would you even provide that? Is weird
Right.
to me. But then also,
We don't
I mean,
know if he provided it or not. That's part of what we don't know.
Oh, okay.
That was when I was saying it. The 3 scenarios are basically that Seth provided it, whether they were knowingly taking it or unknowingly taking it, or Hannah provided it, whether she got it from her dad or she went and got it herself or whatever and brought it on, or listen, all y'all, sabotage.
Let me ask
the
you
Beastie
this.
Boys song.
Yeah.
How easy is it to get that type? Is there
It's a 45
special? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, other types of antique ammos, I guess, because they had other types of weird antique guns, right?
We wouldn't be working with anything that we can't get. I mean, it's just
Get ammo for.
it's the reality of
Gotcha.
it. If you need a weapon to fire and it's a weapon that was built to fire something that doesn't exist anymore, then that's going to be a conversation in prep going, I know you like that weapon, but I'm trying to think. I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
I don't know if those older guns were built a certain way. Where ammo isn't, at least live ammo isn't as readily available. You know?
I mean, Underground Season 1 technically was pre-Civil War, but the DP hated the idea of black powder smoke for his shots. And so we just had to pretend that the cartridge had already been invented, which the Civil War is the reason the cartridge got invented, as war, does a lot for...
I need making movies is so dumb.
It is.
Stupid. Everyone's so dumb.
I mean, this is the kind of conversations that we have, So, that particular DP was like, I don't care about history. And for anyone who's listened to me complain about that show in previous episodes, I can tell you no one cared about history on that show.
Dude, there's a clip and tie in the color purple, and I hate it so much. Yeah. Not the new one, the old one.
Oh, another
clip and tie. He puts on this clip on tie.
This is another thing because now I'm remembering.
Yeah.
This is another thing from this is getting off subject, but this is another thing from Underground that I remember that was so hilarious. Costumes was upset at one point because they wanted, they had written it where she grabbed something from a pocket, and they kept going, but there's no pockets. Pockets weren't a thing yet. And so it was this weird, it's like, well, I mean, we had to pretend bullets were a thing. I just pretended pockets a thing. And then, suddenly she's got a magical pocket. That's what you do on a show that nobody cares about history.
Yeah.
And you apologize to the few people that care later.
Right. I mean, that's, trolls need something to troll about, right?
Mm-hmm. Troll gone troll.
Troll gone troll.
Troll. We got to feed the trolls.
Yeah.
Trolley snacks. But my kind of summation of this is all right, Alec Baldwin was charged with involuntary manslaughter. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I mean, so I guess the prosecutor is like, okay, well, this is the man that literally pulled the trigger. But
involuntarily.
Well, I mean, according to Baldwin, it must have been because he is swearing up and down that he never pulled a trigger. And the FBI report on the gun was like, this gun absolutely cannot fire unless the hammer is pulled back or the trigger is pulled.
Yeah.
It they did drop tests. They did all kinds of things. He just wasn't
thinking about it because he assumed that there weren't a pile of bullets in the goddamn gun. Just say you just.
Well, and so that's
complicated cross draw from the seating position. I'm telling you, man, they're going to talk about it a lot.
But it's so the thing about it is that on a film set, if all the I feel like I've said protocol 27,000 times, but if all of the protocols are followed to a T, it is really not the actor's responsibility or fault if this happens. This should have been checked and double checked and looked over by everyone from the armorer to the prop master to the first AD. Everybody should have seen. All of the operators should have seen. The whole freaking set is allowed to come in and take a look at these things. Literally everybody. The caterer could if he wants to.
Please don't. Caterers.
Please don't. Don't do it. Transpo, don't come in there.
Agreed about the actor. I mean, the actor's not supposed to.
He's not supposed to.
They're supposed to be thinking about
their performance,
acting,
and doing all that stuff.
Now that is a normal thing. If I'm clearing a weapon and everything, and let's say the actor is supposed to fire in the scene, because the actor's the last person I would approach, because I've gone through all the other protocols and people out that need to see it. Once I'm coming to the actor, I'm walking, and in this case, I would say I'm holding that gun barrel down with the drum open, and my fingers are through the middle of the gun, and that's how I'm arriving to the actor with it. And in my other hand, I have the rounds that they're going to be firing. Yeah. And then, it's so we're going to do 3 rounds. I'm going to load 3 rounds in here. I'm going to turn the drum to be in the appropriate spot so you don't have any dry fire or blank fire or misfire or whatever. Anyway, and then the actor seeing it's an empty weapon because I'm still clearing it, and then I'm adding those right at the end, and then I'm announcing weapons going hot.
Yeah.
Then the ADs are, as Chris was saying earlier, are then doing the shout out all over the our little footprint universe. And you can hear, a myriad of voices all going, weapons going hot, fire in the hole, and that's the thing. All the way down to the final moment, it is still being done in a safe manner when you're handing it off. And like I mentioned earlier, let's say, for example, adding to what I said earlier, let's say there is a misfire and one of the rounds doesn't go off. The armor is, in that situation, the armor is rarely a person besides a first AD can cut early in a take. And an armor has all the safety validation to run on set, yelling cut, taking the weapon away immediately because something went wrong. That is a thing. And someone like Hannah probably didn't even know something like that. Not that it would have helped in this scenario, but the armor is a very, I mean, in weapon situations, the armor is basically side by side with the first AD in terms of safety. And that is why it's an important position. That's why it's a very serious position. That's why people like Zoe and I that like to cut up, it's probably the only time you'll see us dead serious, because you do not want to crack any jokes. You want to be as literal as possible. And yeah, I mean, this was avoidable. I mean, even, and here, I'm going to use protocol one more time.
Ooh.
Even if, like, let's say half of the broken protocols weren't broken, you probably still would have nobody dead.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something like over a dozen, and I'm ballparking, but I mean, I would say something in the neighborhood of a dozen protocols. But a dozen protocols were probably violated.
Everything you're not supposed to do, they fucking did.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's where I'm going to leave it. Any final thoughts?
It's sad.
Yeah.
It's really sad.
It's a drag.
It's a fucking drag.
Real drag.
I will say a footnote about Helena Hutchins, the DP, watching all this court TV stuff. I didn't know much about her background, like where she came from and everything. And she was born in the Ukraine, went to school in Russia, and like all these kind of things, came to the US. She was like a journalism and film person. She knew what she wanted to do at an early age. And she sounded like a really great person, and she'd worked very hard to get to where she is. So it is sad. And I think true crime in general, that's something that is important, is never losing the human side of the tragedy and the situation. And that's what's kind of, you don't want it to get lost in this trial, even though they're making the trial itself is going to be all about Hannah, all about Alec and his trial and everything. You don't want to lose sight of the person that was senselessly killed. And so that is a very sad thing.
Yeah.
Bummer of a way to end this.
I've got something there. What do you think the what do you call it, the catchphrase is going to be on the poster?
Oh God.
Broken protocols with other hits.
Rusty with the rules.
I mean, it really would be the most producer-esque, senseless thing to be, like if the tagline was something like, sometimes out in the West, there are no rules, and you're like, ooh, guys.
I got one. Are you ready? Rust. It's a killer. Rust. Innocent people do die.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
All right, now we can end it.
Yeah. Thank you, Justin. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and feel free to write us, correct us, do all that. Zoe's going to tell you in a second. And Zoe, you want to do your thing?
1, 2, better not sue. We want to hear from you, the audience. Do you have a behind the scenes story? Maybe you work in the industry, or maybe you had a run-in with reduction. You live in New Orleans, New York, whatever, and some PA stopped you on the way to work and it was annoying. We want to hear about it. We want to hear about all of it. We love all the stories. Write us and maybe we'll read it on the show. Or maybe you just want to tell us that you love us, or you really hate us, and you want to fact check us because we're wrong about a lot of things. You can troll us, whatever you want to do. You might even want to guess where Joe or Chris are on any given day of the week. You can do that by emailing us at filmfolklorepodcast@gmail.com. It's filmfolklorepodcast@gmail.com. We do indeed want to hear from you. You can also find us on the social media. Instagram is Film Folklore Podcast. Facebook group is Film Folklore. Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, @The Film Folk. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us. We really want to hear from you. It's very important to us. Again, we work in the entertainment business, so we need a lot of validation. We're very pathetic, sad people, and we really want to be reviewed. We want to know your honest opinion. It means a lot to us because you guys mean a lot to us. And for any of you that really like us and have some change burning holes in your pockets and just any money at all, like a credit card, we set up a donation with PayPal and Patreon. Links are in the show notes of this episode and our website. Money helps us do more fun things, and we want to entertain you. Money helps you do more fun things, which helps us do more fun things, which is also helping you have fun. And it would be really nice. And we love you.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.